Bermuda, with its architecturally unique pastel homes, rich in history, lush gardens against a backdrop of pink sandy beaches and blue waters, all blended together to make this island a place of magic. Small wonder the Calypsonian deemed it another world. Inside Bermuda Homes, brought to you by Shell Point Orange, in association with Lily Bermuda and OBMI Bermuda. Gardens play an important role in the layout of the Bermuda home. But what about if the garden is small? Does it necessarily mean it has a small impact? Let's see. Take this house, for example. The gardens are small, but in comes OBMI landscape architect Jennifer Davidson. Her job? Making the small gardens play a bigger role in the overall look of the house.
One of the important things about the value of a garden is not only the extended living space in a house, but also the real value to people's health and also the the property value. And as you came into the house, really the entrance of the house starts away from the house and you walk through the garden, and that becomes part of the garden then becomes an extension of the house. And we're sitting here now, and really the house is extended into the garden. We're using it as a room for an extended room in the house.
So tell me, Jennifer, what was your first priority in enhancing these gardens?
In this case, there was a garden here, but it was very, very overgrown. And the homeowner came and asked us to look at, there were areas that had, because of the dogs and the shade, that were very muddy and were very just unattractive. And so the priority was taking what we had and in the existing garden and seeing what was here and then cleaning it up, and then looking at areas that were very shady and enhancing them with plants that are now suitable to the changed condition. Over the years the tree has grown up, and so we then had to contend with a very shady garden as opposed to a garden where there was lots of sunshine.
So you actually had plants to work with, so you didn't necessarily have to bring in a whole heap of foliage.
That's correct. I always feel that it's very difficult to get mature plants in Bermuda, and so if we can work with what we have, then to me that's a bonus, because the garden then feels mature and sets up a feeling of a mature garden, in this case an oasis, without having to take away and destroy what you have. I mean, in this climate you can really hard prune plants. For example, the bougainvillea, we cut back almost to the stump was about 4 foot high, and you can see it's really taken off now.
You mentioned that the owner has dogs. How did you manage to create a garden that would stand up to the havoc that dogs create?
So in this case, we've used the existing Floritan, which is the old Bermuda crabgrass that's cinch bug resistant, and we've extended it. We replugged when the tree didn't have leaves, so the landscape contractor replugged and then put down grass seed, and that seems to have been able to encourage the garden. I mean, this area where we're sitting was virtually bare of grass, and it's been able to come back in the intervening months. So, and the dogs have been just as active as they were before, but somehow the light in this area has encouraged the grass to grow.
So what advice would you give to a homeowner who has a small property but wants an impactful garden?
This is a relatively small garden, and I think that's part of its charm and beauty about it. And you don't realize that there's a big rock cut there, and you know, there's still enough space for a small pool and grass and a place for a table for people to entertain. And in my case, I live in a place with a communal garden, and I have pots on my at my house where I'm able to grow herbs and lettuce during the winter time, and then even last summer I was able to grow watermelon on my back, at my place. So I think that gardens really you can have large and literally gardens the size of postage stamps and still have a place to go and relax and be.
This large poinciana tree, how much did it influence the design of the garden?
I think trees are very important in gardens, and the poinciana is, in this case, during June, then Bermuda is ablaze at the moment with the poincianas, and so the poinciana here acts as a real focal point. The other thing that it does is it provides beautiful cool shade, so in the morning you can either sit out in the sun or enjoy the shade here, and in the afternoon when the sun goes over, the hot afternoon sun, the poinciana also creates this beautiful shaded canopy. And they're also, you don't have to have such large trees as a poinciana. There are other smaller trees that are beautiful. I've even seen a group of Bermuda palmettos planted as if they're a tree, and they're very, very low maintenance and really create this beautiful feeling of sort of old Bermuda feel, I think, is a way of describing it.
So how important is the tree to a house?
There have been studies that have shown the value that trees add to property, and also tree canopies adding value to a whole neighborhood. And I think we're really lucky in Bermuda because we have a huge array of trees that we can choose from. Be it the large poincianas, even some of our smaller cedar trees. You can go by and see beautiful old gardens in Bermuda that are very, very small, and they do have a cedar tree. I'm not sure if they were planted as commemorative, like wedding trees or what have you, but there are also many smaller trees if people have small gardens.
So what other types of trees one could plant in a small garden?
Well, there's some very lovely fruit trees that you can plant in a garden. There's loquats, lemons, limes. Some of the old citrus aren't as easy to require more care. And, in the case of this small garden, you could have, for example, a small peach tree. And what's so attractive about them is that in the winter, they lose their leaves, and so you get light into the garden as well. Trees don't need to be left to be grown to their maximum height. That's one thing that, particularly if you live in a small garden, that trees can be pruned. When I came to the garden in January last year, the scarlet cordia, which is behind you, had been completely pruned back to its main trunk. And look at it now, you wouldn't have known that it was that it had been pruned at all. And so what it does is it maintains a reasonable size for a small garden, and that it doesn't overpower its position next to the house. And there are quite a few arborists in Bermuda who are able to keep trees pruned. You don't need to do it every year, but they certainly can be pruned on a periodic basis to make sure that they don't get too large.
Now you describe this as an oasis. Tell me why.
Because you're living in an area that there are many houses around, yet the plants really make this a room that extends from the house. And even if you're in the house, you look down into this and you have there's palm trees and bougainvillea. And to me, the poinciana also contributes to making it a real oasis.
You've just seen an example of how a small garden can have a great impact on a Bermuda home. How does your garden grow?